to what happened in the Tiananmen Square, where a lone person stood before a tanker, and how that lone person could stop a tanker. But the Chinese army did not run over that person. They did not run. So this past week, I have been thinking seriously about the propaganda that has been unleashed against China on human rights and all this. Really, I mean, it were in Palestine, the lone protester at the Tiananmen Square would have been run over by the tank, and so what the world needs to address its attention to is that governments should not be at liberty, and particularly Israeli governments should not be at liberty to unleash force on a sovereign country like Palestine and walk away without accountability. That is what I mean. When you watch, listen to, and hear stories of the suffering of the Palestinian people, you ask yourself whether the world order, a world that is regulated by rules, is still functioning, or whether we are stepping back into the era where the strongest was the most right. I mean, you simply cannot, because if this is a world of rules, a world order regulated by rules of conduct, then Israel must have questions to answer. And that's what South Africa demonstrated. That's what other countries are demonstrating. And other countries are calling for Israel and America and then France to live up to their responsibility to the world and uphold the world order that they have created.
Well, thank you very much. You can also join the discussion by sending us your messages via Facebook, facebook.com/Pan-African Television. And may I remind you, we are also on YouTube, youtube.com/Pan-African Television. For those of you who are already following me on Facebook, you can send me a personal message here. KWAME OWUSU DANSO on Facebook and on Instagram and on Twitter. And I will read the messages here for you. Mr. Pratt, please.
Well, I mean, the Palestinian question is clearly gaining worldwide attention. And all over the world, you know, in Asia, everywhere, Africa, Latin America, people are demonstrating against the genocidal onslaught of the Israeli apartheid colonial, you know, settler regime. Now, what is interesting is that these demonstrations are taking place in the elite universities of the United States, and where the upper class elements send their children. I mean, these are the most prominent universities in the United States. Indeed, one of the universities which is taking part in this demonstration is the American University in Washington, which plays a role in the training of U.S. diplomats that they send out. And for me, that is very, very significant. It is significant also to the extent that Israeli propaganda was you know, strongest in the United States of America. It has been said, for example, that the Israeli lobby controls both the Senate and the Congress. And for these outbreaks to occur in the United States of America is most significant, you know. It just shows that Israeli propaganda is collapsing, completely collapsing. And it's collapsing because the genocide is carrying out is happening in our face. You know, it's live on television. At the last count, about 40,000 Palestinians have been killed, and that is not counting bodies which have not been discovered yet. 40,000 Palestinians have been killed, 2/3 of whom are women and children. That's a huge statement. Indeed, over the weekend, I did hear that the International Criminal Court was actually issuing indictments against Israeli officials and so on. You know, so this is a very important development. It throws back, you know, to the Vietnam War, where large sections of the U.S. society stood up against their own government and called for an end to that genocidal war against, you know, Vietnam. Now, for me, these developments are also occurring because the United States government is deeply involved in the genocide which is being committed against the Palestinian people. One, as the U.S. calls for ceasefire and pretends to be sending humanitarian aid in order to alleviate the suffering of the Palestinian people, it is the same U.S. government that is providing the weapons that Israel is using to commit the genocide. It is the same U.S. government which is blocking every attempt to hold Israel to account in the Security Council and so on. And the double standards of the U.S. government is becoming very clear. What is clear is that Palestine is going to become a major election issue, and parties and candidates could lose on account of the positions that they take on Palestine. You understand? Now, the other thing which for me it's absolutely important is that in spite of what is happening in the U.S., the mass protest and so on, governments like the Akufo-Addo government still miss the point and still continue to declare unwavering support for Israel. Initially, all of us thought that, the Akufo-Addo government was pandering to the U.S. administration, but the U.S. administration itself, under pressure, is beginning to shift its position, and yet the Akufo-Addo government has not found it necessary to shift its position at all, continues to parrot, phrases like, we stand solidly with Israel. Stand solidly with Israel for what? For the colonial settlements that it is building, for the stealing of Palestinian lands, for the destruction of Palestinian agriculture, for the destruction of Palestinian educational institutions and so on. It's difficult to understand. Now, last night, I heard the New York police chief, on the international media, and I felt very sad, and it confirmed the fact that the U.S. may not be a democracy. You understand? This is the New York police chief who is saying that, it is not the fault of the students. It is the fault of external bodies which are radicalizing the students, and that he's not going to wait for the radicalization of the students before he takes action. That he's going to take preemptive action. What is the preemptive action? Detention without trial, and so on. Now, the other thing which was very significant for me was the fact that the Israeli lobby in the United States has resorted to violence in order to deal with the peaceful protest of the university students. I mean, they stormed New York, I think the New York State University or so, with pepper sprays and implements and caused substantial damage. I mean, even in the midst of this protest, Israel and its lobby are still displaying wanton, use of force and so on. And me, I'm very clear in my mind that the world ought to stand up against the genocidal activities of Israel now, before it escalates. It's been said that violence anywhere, is an affront to people's rights to demonstrate and so on everywhere. And what is happening in the U.S., if we allow these standards to be set, these standards will be applied to all of us wherever we are, whether we are struggling against the establishment of U.S. military bases, or we are struggling against the neo-colonial exploitation of our economy or whatever, the same standards will be applied to us. And it's important for all of us to stand up and show firm and active solidarity with the Palestinian people. I was happy yesterday when I read the statement of the Metal Workers Union of South Africa, calling on their members and all trade unions around the world to show active solidarity with the Palestinian people. Of course, the Socialist Forum of Ghana also issued a very strong statement saying that on May Day, we should focus on the genocide against Palestine because it affects the working people of Palestine and so on. I'm quite hopeful that we will succeed in defeating Israeli genocidal colonial apartheid occupation of Palestine. Victory is on our side.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Pratt. You may also want to share with us what your thoughts are via Facebook and via our WhatsApp number. I've seen a number of messages, but they are all relating to the Aisu by-elections, and we're definitely going to go into that right now. NPP urged to heed lessons from Aisu by-election, and I'm sure many of you followed that the by-elections in Aisu, and you have your own account of what happened. So let's come into the studio, have the discussion. I'll give you the opportunity to also comment on it by sending us your messages, and then I will read the message here for you. Honorable Aisu.
Well, so the MPP is learning that, well, you can't treat people with contempt. You cannot disregard certain people. Politics is a voluntary association of people. And so when you disrespect people, they will leave you. They don't only, MPP doesn't only need to learn from the Aisu by-election. Aisu by-election is just a constituency. But MPP ought to learn from how they have treated leading members of their party. And the person who comes to mind is Kojo Alan Chiramante. Now, everybody knows how the Aisu by-election came about. That John Kuma, who was the member of parliament for Aisu, suddenly lost his life under circumstances that are still being discussed. And then by Article 1126 of the Constitution, 115, 116 of the Constitution, a by-election ought to have been held. That is, the seat had become vacant, and so there was a need to elect somebody to take the position of John Kuma and continue to represent the people in the Parliament of Ghana. Now, the former MP of the constituency, Kwame Aduomi, put in his claim to represent the people of Aisu. He was defeated by John Kuma in the MPP primary. Yeah. And everybody knows the relationship between John Kuma and the Akufo-Addo and the Achim Mafia. Yeah. And so the rumor was that the Aduomi had been undermined seriously by this cabal to get John Kuma to emerge and to be the candidate for Aisu. But let me roll back a little for people to understand the pain of Kwame Aduomi. Honorable Aduomi, when I was Minister for Roads and Highways, was the ranking member on the Rules and Transport Committee. He's a professional engineer. He had worked with the Ministry of Roads and Highways before he went into Parliament. He understands the dynamics of roads construction, and he's actively participated. So in the lead up to 2016 election, you recall that the MPP government had embarked on massive propaganda to discredit the flyovers and interchanges that were being constructed by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, particularly at Circle, at the Obichebe Lemti Circle, and also at Kaswa. They had said that the metal that was being used, it is a metal reinforced bridge, will collapse in no time. That was massive propaganda. They had said the cost had been highly inflated, and the talk within the MPP in 2016 was so pronounced that Nana Akufo-Addo was motivated, was encouraged to comment on that. I mean, everybody thought that the propaganda would be left to the serial callers. But somehow in 2016, Nana Akufo-Addo invoked his serial calling traits and commented on what serial callers, people who did not know what went into road construction, were talking about. Now, when he did that, he did not also consult. He didn't consult the experts in the sector to brief him adequately. And he has a habit of not consulting. And so he's mostly misled. Just like 2 days ago, again, he was misled into saying that there's no DANSO in Ghana. And you remember the Ameri issue where he was again misled. Now, so he commented. Then, naturally, being a ranking member of the Rules and Transport Committee of Parliament, Aduomi was contacted by the media to give his fair and candid opinion on the bridges. And he said that there was nothing fundamentally wrong with the bridges. That the cost of the projects, the material being used, the time scales being given, were all in tandem with the FETF rules, and that this provision being accorded to the construction was good, and that he didn't think that Nana Akufo-Addo had gotten the issue right. He said it publicly, and that was the beginning of his problem with the MPP government, because he had disagreed with the flag bearer. Now everybody thought that when Nana Akufo-Addo won the 2016 election, Aduomi would be the minister, because he has tremendous respect among his engineers. And I'm not talking because I was with him in Parliament. I actually worked with him because he was they offered supervisory jurisdiction when I was at the Ministry of Roads and Highways. And I could see anytime he was talking, anytime the Roads and Transport Committee engaged Parliament and he was making his point, everybody listened, including the engineers. Now, so when he did that, Nana Akufo-Addo decided to bring his cousin. So I stepped in and brought his cousin to succeed me, Amakwata. He brought him to succeed me and made Aduomi the deputy, effectively putting him in the Siberia at the Ministry of Roads and Highways, and worked to get him out of Parliament. And that relieved him of the responsibility of reappointing him as anything at all. So Aduomi decided when the opportunity came to also put in his claim. He believed that the people still liked him. And that has reflected in the elections. He's gotten about 44% of the votes. 44% of votes have sent people to Parliament. 44%. And so the NDC even did not contest. So if NDC had contested, probably they would have taken part of the vote that that Benjamin, the lawyer Benjamin something, I don't know, what's his name? The guy who won the primaries. They probably would have taken some of the votes from him. But NDC did not contest. NDC felt that, look, the time is too short to go into by-election. Effectively, Nana Akufo-Addo has got 7 months to hand over power. 7 months. Anybody who is going to Parliament will equally have 7 months before the expiration of the term of Parliament and the organization of new elections. So, and again, Professor Azar has said that, look, when you look at Article 112(6) of the Constitution, the drafters of the Constitution were of the view that the only time that the people cannot be represented in Parliament is when a vacancy occurs in the constituency 3 months to a general election. And the drafting of Article 112(6), in his view, was directed towards government. You see, government wasting energy, time, and resources to go and contest, organize elections when it was just 3 months. But when you look at it carefully, it is not only from the point of view of government, even from the point of the view of the candidates. If this elected AUC MP gets into parliament, you probably will just do 3 or 4 months active work, and in 3 months will be spent on the field again. So all the resources, and I understand they sent tremendous amounts of money, including Dr. Kingsley Nyaku, MP for KWADASU, bribing electoral officers or giving an envelope to electoral officers for their lunch. He had somehow arrogated to himself the power and authority to provide lunch to electoral officers. And that's treated. That's treated. So the elections are clear. The issue is divided. It's divided between the DOMI and the MPP. Not the DOMI and even the candidate. The candidate will go to parliament. In 3 months' time or 7 months' time, he will achieve almost nothing. Now, the call for them to learn lessons from OWUSU is a call that is looking at the future. That if this MP-elect gets into parliament and disappoints the people, because he will definitely disappoint the people, because Ghana is in dire straits. I mean, we will come to it, but get-found schools are being locked up. Students are not having access because government has not settled its obligation to the contractor. I mean, government itself is finding it difficult to buy fuel, to pay independent power producers for them to produce power for us. So clearly, and we are living, I mean, 2 days ago, Kwachi, or Dr. Kwachi said, well, it appears that government will still rely on treasury bills for the purposes of running this country because they have been locked out of the international market. So clearly, we are in dire straits. Returning were as tedious as go over. So unless you are going to run this country on propaganda, hard times are ahead. So they are afraid that if this MP-elect gets into parliament and is unable to achieve any substantial improvement in the lives of the people and the constituency, the tide might change against the MPP and they might elect an independent candidate. That's why their chairman and team is already calling for a reconciliation of the parties in the AUSU matter, and has already invited the losing candidate Adiomi, Honorable Adiomi, for discussions on how to reconcile the issues. And I think that it's important that they look at it. In whatever case, we in our party, we are marching forward. The NDC is marching forward. And it's like we are holding the ace. So whatever card they play, we are prepared for them.
Let's look at the conduct of the election system.
Well, there was nothing substantially different from the conduct of previous by-elections. You know, by-elections have a character of their own. Turnouts are low. So the Electoral Commission had predicted about 50% turnout. Turnouts are low. And particularly this by-election, it was just 7 months. People would think that it's just a useless waste of time. But the Electoral Commission did do well. I mean, they opened nominations. The parties filed, and they've done what they are supposed to do under the prevailing circumstances. As a former member of Parliament and as an activist in search of how to limit the effect of money in politics, I think that civil society organizations must be looking at what happened in OWUSU critically, because reports abound that voters were treated, were given money, that there was rampant vote buying. Nana Akufo-Addo himself did not help matters when he went there and said that, well, he is president, and he, if they don't vote their candidate, his candidate to go to parliament, Aisu might not get development projects and all those. So, as a people, probably Aisu and Ascendorf should be a case study for all of us. And we should start, because our democracy is failing. It's obviously failing. Because people who don't have money, and KOD, I mean, if you are interested in contesting parliamentary elections in the future, you must begin looking for money. But that is not what the drafters of the Constitution, what the people who were agitating for a return of the country to democratic rule, multi-party democracy, had anticipated. Right. That money playing a leading role. But these people, this party, MPP party, has so bastardized the system that money is not playing the leading role, and appears to be the catalyst for people who want to get into parliament. And I think that is condemnable. We ought to look, if we want to save our democracy, we ought to look at ways of restricting the influence of money in politics.
Mr. Pratt.
Well, I think it's true that especially the new patriotic party ought to learn important lessons from the just ended Aisu by-election. For me, this was a very critical election. It was not just a by-election. It had major serious consequences for the conduct of government business in Parliament. We already have a hung Parliament of 137, and this would have altered that situation, significantly, and made it impossible for government to carry out its business, in Parliament. So it was a very critical election. It was a situation-altering election. Now, if you look at the results, they should be frightening for the New Patriotic Party. The last election, their candidates scored more than 80%, I'm told. Now they're scoring just above 50%. And that's significant. Now, I saw videos of citizens of Aisu who claimed that they were members of the New Patriotic Party, who have decided never to vote for the New Patriotic Party again. That's significant. You understand? Now, sometimes our politicians underrate the intelligence of our people. If there's going to be a by-election and you rush to the constituency with excavators and start constructing roads and so on, what you're telling the people is that you had the capacity to do those development projects, but you didn't. You understand? And it's very annoying when politicians behave in that manner. For me, the biggest downer in that by-election was the statement which His Excellency the President made to the effect that he's an MPP president and that his presidency ultimately is to serve the interest of the MPP and not Ghana. I mean, that's frightening. That is the biggest devaluation of the presidency that I've heard in recent years. You understand? So our president is not the president of Ghana, he's the president of MPP. And he goes on to make the point that if you want development in your area, it is only possible when MPP people approach him. My goodness. And then he goes on to say that he's the final authority when it comes to the approval of development projects like roads and so on. So in effect, the president is telling us that communities which have problems with their infrastructure, which have no roads, which have no good schools and so on, they are in this current situation because he has decided that those communities should not get those amenities. I nearly said something. Just now, nearly said something. Because, what is this? It's really frightening. You understand? And I think that annoyed people a lot. Again this morning, there are many stories in the newspapers about how our society is becoming lawless. And I read those stories, in addition to stories about how the NPP conducted itself in Aisu. I mean, all of us are aware of the allegation that activists, campaigners of the New Patriotic Party actually went to Aisu with bags of marijuana and distributed them to people. In fact, one young person whose video I saw on Metro TV actually said that when they complained about the distribution of marijuana to young people and so on, they were told that they were being given marijuana so that they can get high and in their highness assist them to rig the elections. I mean, what is this? That you have a government itself going out to break the law in order to win an election. That's frightening, okay? I'm keenly aware of the campaign to legalize the consumption of marijuana for leisure and health purposes and so on. And I'm keenly aware of that, because I've followed that debate since the 1960s. I think it was in 1967 that Professor Fishin of the psychology department of the University of Ghana actually launched a campaign to legalize marijuana. And since then, others have joined that campaign and so on. So I'm keenly aware of that. I'm keenly aware of the fact that in many parts of the world, especially Europe and the Americas, smoking of marijuana has been legalized, and there may be very good reasons for that legalization. But in Ghana, it is still a crime. People are still being arrested and prosecuted. And leaders of the governing party, allegedly, are carrying marijuana in huge bags. I mean, there was a woman who I saw in the video, a young man who I saw in the video, who actually said that the size of the marijuana being distributed was like this. Frightening. I mean, absolute lawlessness, you know. Now, there's also the issue about the neutrality of election officials. And I saw the Electoral Commission trying to distance itself from the people who were allegedly bribed, you know, to misconduct themselves in the elections, election officials. And the Electoral Commission's main argument is that they are not full-time staffers and that they are temporary staffers. That's a useless argument. It's a useless argument to the extent that they are agents of the Commission. Whether they are temporary or permanent, they are still agents of the Commission. They were recruited by the Commission, they were trained by the Commission, they were given the assignments by the Commission, and the Commission takes responsibility for whatever actions they may or may not have taken. You understand? So that argument by the Electoral Commission is useless. Now we are approaching a very major election, which is due in 6 months' time. In fact, on December 7th, 2024. And one of the concerns that we all do have is the apparent packing of the Electoral Commission with sympathizers of the government. And I say this with vehemence, you understand. Now, last week, the Electoral Commission issued a statement in which it claimed that former President John Mahama appointed persons who were allied to the National Democratic Congress onto the Electoral Commission. And it used that as justification or apparent justification for what is happening now. It was an attempt at equalization. And I felt sick in the stomach that the Electoral Commission was engaged in this level of equalization. Now, we do also have a commission. One of its commissioners, clearly, is a self-confessed member, activist, and propagandist of the New Patriotic Party. That's untenable. That's unacceptable. We now have a commission, one of whose commissioners actually made a public statement to the effect that the leading opposition party is a threat to the effort to nurture democracy in Ghana. Clearly that establishes a bias. You understand? Clearly that establishes a bias. And I think it's important that we do something about this, at least public perception of bias on the part of the Electoral Commission. I am also minded by what happened in Yendi during the parliamentary primaries of the New Patriotic Party, in which an EC official declared that he's a member and sympathizers of the New Patriotic Party publicly, and so on. Now, are we going to have free and fair elections in these circumstances? I wonder. Okay. Now, the main reason why the NPP needs to evaluate this election results and do so carefully is the fact that, look, if you watch all elections since 1992, they themselves have claimed that the Ashanti region is their stronghold. And in fact, in many places, they win more than 80% of total votes. So if the trend in Aisu spreads, they've lost the election. They need to be winning massively, 70, 80, even 90% in the Ashanti region, some constituencies in the Ashanti region, in order to be able to win the presidential elections. Now this election result shows that that is not likely to be the position. Now, I've read the statement issued by Professor Christopher Amoyao Ekunfi, who is calling for reconciliation. That all the people who have been hurt in the party, it's time to talk to them, it's time to assuage their fears and so on. I think it's too late. It's too late. The animals have already escaped. There's no point bolting the gates. What are they going to do now to bring back into their fold Mr. Alancho Martin and his supporters? That division has become permanent. And I think that they're crying over spilt milk. The milk has already been spilt, and nothing can change the current situation. They do not help matters also by some of the utterances they make. I saw the president in Aisu saying that if you don't vote for their candidate, then you are NDC. As if the NDC is some criminal, satanic organization. These utterances inevitably and eventually drive people into the fold of the NDC. And I think that they should actually watch it, because it's not in their best interest. Now, the money to procure these results, with all of their leading lights flooding the Aisu constituency, the national chairman was on the ground, national organizer was on the ground, everybody who mattered in the party was on the ground. And this is the result they could get in their own stronghold. Something is wrong, and I'm beginning to feel that what is wrong cannot be remedied now. And the indications are that they're heading straight to a devastating defeat in the next elections. They're likely to lose a lot more parliamentary seats, and I think that they're also likely to lose, in the presidential elections. Now, the other thing which is also very important is the polls which were conducted on the Aisu by-election. Again, if you look at the poll results, of Global Info Analytics, it was there, just there. If you take the fact that they made the provision for a margin of error of about 3% and so on, they were dead on spot. So if they were dead on spot on the Aisu by-election, they were dead on spot on the presidential candidature, the contest for presidential candidature within the party, dead on spot in the Asin North elections and so on, then they ought to be taken serious. And if they're being taken serious, the future does not bode well for the NPP at all. As for the allegations of bribery, it is a matter which is being investigated. And I like to wait for the outcome of the investigation. The claims which are being made now are problematic. But let's have patience. If it's properly investigated, we would know. If it's shabbily investigated, we would know. So I'm not in a hurry at all to make comments.
President.
We will know.
Right, let me read a few messages here. This one says, good morning to you, KWAME and your panelists. Please tell Comrade Pratt that I'm interested in what he held back.
He said he wanted to say something.
Oh, he held back.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. He made a mistake. He said, "I nearly said something. I am Martin Amevo from Lakeside Estate." Good morning, KOD. A just by election is an eye-opener to us. We are leaving no stone unturned to keep our eyes on the ball till JDM is sworn in as President of Ghana come January 7th, 2025. I salute you, sir, Honorable Alhaji Inus Afuseni. This one is from Buhari, Bukurusu. I hope I got it right. Good morning. When the Burkina contractor gave a Ford gift to Mahama through the Ghana embassy in Burkina Faso, and well documented, although Mahama didn't personally receive or use it, this same Kingsley Nyako condemned Mahama and said what he did wasn't morally right, only for him to give a supposed gift to EC official during an election. Hypocrisy reaching a nauseating point. What was wrong yesterday is equally wrong today. Dominic from Tema. Thank you, Dominic, for your message. This one says, good morning to you, lawyer. The Aisu election should be a lesson not only to the MPP but all other political parties in this country. Sharing money on election day and the eve to election isn't working again. Ghanaians are wise. We need development, not 100 Ghana cedis, not one-day show where all government machineries move to one location to influence and convince the Ghanaian people to vote for them. We won't this time around object to, but will resist oppressors rule from the MPP in election 2024. What hurts me the most is that the president till now doesn't notice that if you win election, you belong to the nation, not political parties. MPP should think of absolving His Excellency the President to the advisory body of the party because he won't offer any good advice. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, JP, for your message. This one says, good morning to you and Uncle Pratt. Kindly remind Uncle Pratt that Akufo-Addo has been an MPP government president since day one. Please cast your minds back to when he was swearing in his ministers in 2017 on the issue of the Aisu by-election. Dr. Kingsley Nyako and the EC officials must be arrested and prosecuted without any argument. This is a clear case of bribery and corruption with video evidence. It is a disgrace for the EC to issue a statement without mentioning the said Kwadaso MP, Dr. Kingsley Nyako's name. Jack from Ho sent in this one. This one says, good morning to you, KOD and Shay. Aisu has exposed the MPP. Above all, the man who said he is the president of MPP. This arrogant man should have been impeached. Unfortunately, my Ghana is just a backing dog. BB from Accra sent in this one. Good morning to you, KOD. How can you put a calculated amount in an envelope from your home meant to buy lunch for EC officials? MPP should rather apologize than keep showing arrogance. KB Amenyo Teller from Amfoiga in the Volta region. I am Amos in Asin for panelist. I want EC to answer me as a layman. Can anybody walk to a polling station while election is taking place to present anything to electoral officials without permission from the presiding officer? This one is from Real Ghana. God bless. Watching you from Lagos, Nigeria. Is this the best MPP can do after all the vote buying and wastage of resources by meant to influence voting patterns by entire government machinery? Insignificantly low compared with the 2020 election when John Kumar garnered 68,326, representing 82.83% as against George Kwame, who says 14,164, representing 17.17%. MPP has a lot of work to do if this is the perceptions of the Ghanaian electorate, especially MPP's strongest region, Ashanti. Akufo-Addo must best abstain from further provocations, disrespect for traditional leaders and their subjects that are likely to jeopardize Bawumia and MPP's 2024 campaign. This one says, good morning to you, Pan-African TV. I want to draw your attention to one of the polling stations where the PO counted up to 33, skipped to 37, and none of the spectators could detect it. Okay, if you have a video evidence, share with us. Musa Batua in Aswase, just so by-election has exposed some EC officials who are working in the interest of MPP. When President Akufo-Addo started appointing known MPP guys into Electoral Commission, we raised red flags because of the credibility of the December polls. The outcome must be accepted by all the parties because we've lost confidence in the judiciary. The Unanimous 7 FC is a case study for political science students. Okay, so, okay, you're talking about SML. Let me read this final one and then I will move on to the next story. Good morning, KOD. This Tyrant Akufo-Addo will soon leave office in 2025. All right, thank you very much. Honorable Ines of Zeni, I mean, before we move to the next story, I think it's important. How prepared is the NDC to face the MPP, especially in the Ashanti region? How prepared are you?
Well,
particularly knowing what has transpired.
First of all, you don't expect me to reveal our strategy.
No, you're not going to reveal it, but how prepared are you?
We're very prepared. Very prepared. And there is a team working in the Ashanti region. We have drawn up a strategy on how to approach the Ashanti region. What is helping us in this particular case is Nana Akufo-Addo has done absolutely nothing in the Ashanti region, and many MPP activists and even ministers have said that Ashanti region are like sheep. You just give them food that they will eat. And so for this is t-shirts. The Ashantis like t-shirts, and so just give them t-shirts. They will wear a vote. And some have even claimed that it's like a birthright. And so whether they work in Ashanti or not, and Nana Akufo-Addo is keeping the Ashantis more infuriated. Today, if you go to Chibi, you understand what I'm talking about. Apart from using gold to pave the roads, almost all the roads in Chibi have been done. So Nana Akufo-Addo's presidency is not only for MPP, it's also for his traditional homeland. So he wants his legacy to be that when he became president, he uplifted his whole place. And that's his concept of government. It's not about Ghana as a whole. But we are very prepared. But we are working in the Ashanti region.
All right, let me say a happy 50th birthday to Mr. Yao Boateng of Parliamentary Press Corps. You are an ardent viewer of Pan-African television. You always watch the morning show, and also Alaji and Alaji. Happy 50th birthday to you. Thank you for always watching Pan-African television. Honorable, Doomsday is over. Is Doomsday over?
Well, Nana Akufo-Addo is gradually becoming somebody who hardly tells the truth. And it's sad. I do not like to describe my president in such terms. But he doesn't inspire any longer. Because people predict him in all matters. Even when his ministers commit a crime and the attention of the president is brought to the commission of that crime, people can predict the outcome because they know what he will do. So it's not his state and attitude towards this country is no longer funny. It's a case for worry. I have said, and I will say it again on this platform, that the MPP has everything to thank John Mahama for. Everything to thank John Mahama for. And that their incompetence in administering this country is manifested in all sectors of the economy. From roads to electricity to health, just name it. DANSO is not over. Because we are bankrupt. The reason why there is DANSO is largely because Nana Akufo-Addo's government has not been able to pay independent power producers for the independent power producers to buy fuel to generate power for us. So Nana Akufo-Addo, when he spoke yesterday on 1st May, should have told us that he has paid X amount of money. Government has paid X amount of money to independent power producers. And in no time, they will be able to buy fuel to power their plants. He didn't say that. He repeated ad nauseum the statement by Idi Mahama that the only reason why we were undergoing or going through DANSO was because some transformers were being changed. Where? How many? Do you know? How can you run a government like Pilolo?
I think they mentioned 650, I believe.
Where?
Yeah.
Where?
Yes, but they didn't.
Where?
Yeah.
That's how to run a government. Yeah. Pilolo. Hide and seek government. No. Where were they changing the transformers? That all over the country, people are experiencing them. So 2 days ago, my power went off exactly at 5 p.m. I only got power the next day, 8 o'clock. And I have not seen ECD guys working at my area. So that was what? A trip in the transformers or what? And so, please, Nana Akufo-Addo, you have failed and failed woefully. You have failed the people of this country. You made capital out of the 2014-2015 and part of 2016 power crisis that we had in this country. The MPP christened it DANSO, and people believe that your coming will change the situation. But before even you came, the combined effort of JEA Mills of late and that of John Dramani Mahama escalated our installed capacity from 2,800 to 5,624. 5,626. Now, that means we have enough installed capacity in Ghana for power to run 24/7. The only reason why power cannot run 24/7 is the inability of government, because a majority of the installed capacity that we have is owned by independent power producers. So if you don't pay them, if they produce power and you don't pay them, they can't buy fuel to generate more power for you. You recall the case of Sono Asogle, when they said they were not going to produce power, and the Ministry of Finance and the then Kenofurata entered into an agreement to pay them a certain amount and promised to liquidate the rest of the amount later. That is the symptom, that is the problem confronting us. So I ask myself, if Nana Addo Akufo-Addo has not done anything to increase our installed capacity, has inherited abundant energy in this country in terms of the number of thermal plants put in place by the previous government. And his responsibility is just to make sure that when the power is produced and used, the independent power producers are paid. And he has been unable to do that. Is he fit to call himself president of the country? Now, apart from that, what is more saddening is that NDC had seen that the legacy debts, which Kufuor's reason for increasing the price of fuel was to deal with the legacy debt. You remember?
Yeah.
But for the 8 years reign of Kufuor, he could not deal with the legacy debt. When Atamils came, he had to issue bonds to be able to deal with part of the legacy debt. John Dramani Mahama, when he took over, found a lasting solution to the legacy debt by the establishment of the Energy Sector Levy Act. The Levy Sector Energy Act had a sunset clause. That act was going to be in existence for 5 years. And within the 5 years, by the model that was used, enough money would be gathered to pay off the legacy debt. So Nana Akufo-Addo came into office and inherited ESLA. What did they do? They ran to the international money market and said, well, we have got this stream of cash coming in every month. We want the money now. We want the money now. They mortgaged EXLA and took the money. When they took the money, they didn't retire the legacy debt. They spent it. So as we speak, and extended the duration of EXLA. Extended. Legacy. People of Ghana, our viewers should understand that EXLA was going to be in existence for only 5 years.
And I think it was one of the nuisance
taxes that they described. That's described. They have extended it because they've mortgaged it. Now, we said, okay, so the EXLA was going to deal with the legacy debt. Let's do a watershed agreement. So when ECG and all service providers sell the power and collect the money, we want the money distributed according to this formula. That will guarantee money always going to the IPPs. You remember the Central PURC told the ECG to comply.
Yeah, the waterfall agreement.
The waterfall agreement.
Yeah, I remember. I've read it too.
Yes. MPP refused to comply. That is why we are where we are. But you see, they have so told lies to their supporters, and they are ruling this government with propaganda that they confuse the people and confuse the issues. First of all, this government has not added 1 megawatt to our generation capacity. They didn't need to add 1 megawatt, any power, because we had done that for them. We had done the work for them. And they had done the work for them. John Dramani Mahama had done the work for them. All they needed was to make sure that there was money to pay independent power producers. That too, the problem. After setting up ASLA, that, and then you mismanaging it, and also mismanaging the cash waterfall agreement, we are where we are. So, DANSO is not because we don't have enough power. DANSO is there was a man in our NDC who is dead now, he's late. He used to use Big West. I don't know whether you remember me. Remember he was Big West. It's the a gigantic mismanagement of the MPP by the economy of Ghana, and that has manifested in this our economic status now. People should not expect anything different until our economic circumstances change. Because MPP will not get money. We have been locked out of the capital market.
People have also said that it's also as a result of the non-performance of our currency, which is invariably affecting the inability of government to raise money.
Explain. 2 days ago, somebody explained something to me, and you must understand. Our currency is depreciating because we don't have enough to export.
Yep.
Our currency is tied, it's the gold standard. It's tied to the American dollar. Now, when we have more currency, when we have more dollars, our currency sitting on the dollar will be stronger because the foundation is what?
Dollar.
Strong. Now, when the dollars start reducing and we don't augment the dollars, or we're incapable of augmenting the dollars, and there are few dollars holding our currency, what will happen? The currency will do what? Will fall. That's all. Will fall. So, because we buy things from outside, because we import things, then the crude is a perfect example. And we don't have enough foreign exchange for that purpose. That is why it is always a requirement that we have international buffers. Because we sell and they look at the buffers, and our creditors are able to tell whether we'll be able to pay or not. So the reason why the currency is falling is because we are not performing. Now, what would have gotten us the money? Corruption, mismanagement, and recklessness is making the businesses to do what? To move out. Cocoa is being smuggled. So we are just in dire straits. Look, I cannot wait to see the back of the MPP by the 7th of December. And they have so mismanaged this country to the point that Dr. Asa Asante says that, well, prosecuting them is no longer a promise. It's an inevitable. It's an inevitable. Okay, that because what we are witnessing in Ghana today has never been witnessed before. Has never been witnessed before. And until you hold those who have brought us to this position or situation accountable, you are not going to be able to instill confidence of the people in our democracy.
Thank you very much, Honorable. I've seen a lot of the messages on Facebook. I'll try and read them, but after Mr. Pratt's submission in respect of this subject matter, please.
Well, I've tried to read the newspaper reports, and most of the newspapers disagree on what the president actually said. This is the Statesman. I have the Daily Statesman in front of me, Daily Statesman of today. And the Daily Statesman says, President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has announced that the recent challenges in electricity supply, known as DANSO, have been effectively resolved. This is the Daily Statesman. Now I go to another newspaper, and interestingly is the Daily Guide, which does not make any secret of its support for the ruling government. And the Daily Guide reports, President Akufo-Addo has given Ghanaians a firm assurance that the issue of intermittent power supply that has recently engulfed the nation will come to an end soon. So, which of these statements did the president make? Which of these statements did the president make? Now, I'll be surprised if the president made a categorical statement that DANSO was over, because it is not. As he was speaking, parts of Accra were in darkness. As he was speaking, parts of Accra were in darkness. And this morning, there are still parts of Accra which are in darkness. So DANSO is not over. Now, if you read the reports again, we are being told that the DANSO situation has been brought about because of the repairs of transformers. I mean, that's a lie. It should not be repeated again. I mean, clearly, we have plunged ourselves into DANSO because of our inability to buy fuel. That's clear. So this excuse of refurbishment of transformers and so on, we should just throw it away. Now, I'm worried. Your statements coming from people in government are not just shocking, but they're foolish. Okay? The other day, it was the Minister for Energy who spoke. And he said that the MPP DANSO is better than the Mahama DANSO. Did we vote for anybody to bring us a better DANSO? And in any case, what is a better DANSO? How can DANSO be better? I mean, incredible. I mean, really? That the MPP DANSO is better than the Mahama DANSO. DANSO better. Look, I think we should be spared these insults. You know, we need to be spared these insults. The fact of the matter is that today, our country, Ghana, is bankrupt. And the bankruptcy finds expression in many ways. And one of the ways in which this bankruptcy finds expression is the DANSO that we're experiencing today. Now, this DANSO has led to a situation where many companies have shut down. I've heard trade unionists and others complain that companies have shut down because they cannot operate with this erratic power supply And even the cost of running generators is so prohibitive that companies have shut down. Now, if companies have shut down, it would mean that the unemployment situation has gotten worse. You understand? And then it would also mean that the economy is sinking deeper and deeper. Okay. As we speak, over the last 2 or 3 years, cocoa production has actually been halved. Cocoa production. You know. So at a time when on the New York Stock Exchange, cocoa prices are rising at an astronomical rate, we don't have the beans to sell. We don't even have the beans to sell. Now, cocoa production has reduced substantially, partly as a result of galamsey. Galamsey. In fact, mainly as a result of galamsey, I would say, and so on. And here we are. And rather than, you know, whipping all of us to think, to discuss, to debate, and find solutions to this crisis, our president is reducing it to a battle between NPP and NDC. And sometimes when I sit back, I wonder, these leaders, where did they come from? They are not even aware of our history. This DANSO crisis was first predicted, if I'm not wrong, in 1966. After the coup which overthrew Nkrumah, the new administration, which included Professor Buzia and elements of the Dankwa Buzia, you know, brought in an expert from England to advise. Now, they had already tried to sabotage the Akosombo project by sending delegations abroad and so on to sabotage the Akosombo project. And when that sabotage had failed, they had made the argument that the capacity of the Akosombo Dam was too much. That Ghana, as a small developing country, we didn't need that much electricity. So this professor that they brought from England came and advised that we should not expand the capacity to generate electricity because what he had was more than we needed. Now, this was at a time when the Nkrumah government wanted to build the Bui hydroelectric project. Engineers from the Soviet Union had actually come, they were on site. They had to pack bag and baggage and go back. That's how the Bui Dam project was delayed for almost 40 years. Now, at the time, the Nkrumah government had also reached agreement with the Soviet Union to construct a nuclear power plant. That was also abandoned. So clearly, all of this pointed to the fact that at some time in our future, we're going to have this power crisis. Okay. Now, the current secretary to the president, the executive secretary to the president, Nana Asante Bedietwo, his father was the chairman of the Energy Commission, I think. And he wrote a very damning report. He gave me a copy of the report himself. And he raised hell about our inability to expand our generation capacity, even though we had opportunities to expand the generation capacity. Okay. So all of this culminated in the DANSO that we experienced. Mind you, it did not start with the Mahama administration. And therefore, you cannot blame the Mahama administration for starting the DANSO, crisis. The DANSO crisis manifested in a very profound way under President John Agyekum Kufuor. And I recall that my good friend Charles Weku Brobe made a claim that we had bought toy generators in order to resolve the problem under President Kufuor. I also recall that some of our venerated bishops and archbishops and prophets and so on actually jumped into cars, luxurious cars, and drove to Akosombo to pray over the dam for the dam to be filled in the Kufuor era. You understand? So to blame the DANSO situation on President John Dramani Mahama is to be mischievous and to lie. because he was not responsible for the problem. Now again, I recall that when the New Patriotic Party came into power, their biggest complaint was that John Mahama had installed excessive capacity for electricity generation, and that we were paying for capacity that we would not use, and therefore John Mahama was causing financial loss to the state. How can they now turn around and say that they solved the DANSO problem and so on? Because the capacity to generate is there. What is not there is the fuel to generate. We can't pay for the fuel to generate electricity. That's the problem. And why? I can understand why we can't pay for fuel to generate, electricity. At the last count, 128% of total national revenue was going into debt servicing, debt repayment, and public sector emoluments. Where is the money to buy the fuel? No money to buy the fuel, and that is why we are suffering. And I think we should be honest about the situation. Some of these statements which have been made recently by the president are exceedingly worrying. And I wonder how he makes these statements. One of the statements which troubled me the most was his assertion that he would never hand over power to somebody he has defeated twice in an election. Who makes that decision? Who becomes the next president? Is it made by the incumbent president? He has no power to make such decisions. It is the people of Ghana who will decide who the next president should be. And when the people of Ghana decide who the next president should be, anybody who stands in the way of the people of Ghana will be wiped off, will be clearly wiped off, like a tsunami and so on. So my friend Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo must be told that indeed he has no power to decide who becomes the next president. He should stop talking like that. You understand? And the other time he also made statements to the effect that under John Mahama, DANSO was for a very long period. We experienced DANSO for a short time and so on. And that statement is not different from the statement made by the Minister of Energy, that some DANSO is better than some DANSO. It's ridiculous. They should stop making such statements, In any case, whether DANSO is over or not, it's not for me to come here and say. The people feel it in their houses. People who this morning have no light, they know that they're experiencing DANSO. And then sometimes they say, oh, this one is not DANSO. What is DANSO? Off and on. Doom and so. What we experience, is it not doom and so? And sometimes, I can't understand this rule. Sometimes they think that, look, merely by not providing a timetable, they can escape, the fact that we have DANSO. Look, that is like behaving like an ostrich. If you bury your head in the sand, and you do not see reality above the sand, it does not change the reality above the sand. We are getting fed up. We're all getting fed up.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt. Yakubu Paul Asada says the abysmal performance of the NPP in the just ended Aisu by-election, despite the countless cash and logistics engineered there, tells how Ghanaians are fed up with the mother serpent of corruption and alliance. William Monday Jikunu says, good morning to you, KOD, and greet Mr. Pratt for me. We had power outage in Pantine and its surrounding areas from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. yesterday as the NPP lied to gain power, but reality has caught up with them. Elder Roxanne Anyimadu says, good morning to you, KOD, and best wishes to Honorable Inusa and Mr. Pratt. I have been thinking about how money was flowing like a Kosovo spillage at Aisu. I'm sad to be a Ghanaian. What was spent at Aisu could easily have built 30 ultra-modern hospitals. And okay. The next government has a huge financial crisis to deal with. Ghana is dead and buried by the MPP regime. Kwabna from Ejoso. Thank you, Kwabna, for your message this morning. Selo Matiso says, good morning, KOD. My regards to Honorable and Uncle Pratt. Emmanuel Johnson says, DANSO is a result of the cataclysmic mismanagement of the Ghanaian economy. Mariah Adams says, one even said, DANSO is dark and lovely. Can you imagine? Okay, thank you. This is rather very long. Okay. Mike Moody says, the DANSO incident is a strategy to render Ghana's economy vulnerable, weak, and unfavorable for the incoming president, because the Ejapadia strategy is to colonize Ghana by thieves, must definitely stand. The proof is evident in the banking sector too, and many others. All right, let's move on to our final story here on the show. Honorable, Get Fund schools have been locked up for government's inability to pay some 500,000 Ghana cedis.
Yes, so this is a simple story. It's a straightforward one.
Yep.
I mean, when you were doing you have come across the concept of self-help. That when you owe, and then when the government owes you and is unable to pay by reason of the fact that you have delivered services to government, if those services are still available and can be taken custody of, you take custody of the product to compel government to pay. I mean, just like DANSO. I mean, you have established generators. The government hasn't paid you. You won't go and borrow money from the bank and to exacerbate your financial situation. You will sit and wait for government to pay. So it's the same thing all over. I mean, this government is just ridiculous. Now, even when he has the money to pay, it identifies people who are their sympathizers and pays them. For them, they have different blood running in them. Those who are not their sympathizers, I can tell you, they have to pour libation to be able to pay. The government has legalized almost everything, including even recruitment to the Ghana Education Service. They commercialize everything. so I'm not surprised when I read the story, even though it made it to the front page of the inside, by reason of the fact that this paper has tremendous love for the children of this country. I think that the schools must be open, the government must fulfill its obligation to the contractor for the classrooms to be open for children to study. But this government is not simply interested in those things. And I'm telling you that if this government is going to even pay contractors, and sometimes I sit down and contractors call me and tell me, what were you doing at the road sector? I said, why? He said, this time if we are looking for payment, do you know the amount of people you see? I said, but this is a different government. John Dramani was paying you to be able to deliver. He knew the importance of delivery. The contractor has no money lying under his bed. Yeah. You go and borrow because you are given a letter, and the letter says that when you perform, you'll be paid. So you take the letter assurance to the bank, and the bank gives you money to be able to do it. No. If you are not paid, and many contractors have lost their lives by reason of the fact that the government has taken payment.
Hi, Kwame, can you remind Uncle Kwesi that it was the late Dr. Kofiada who rather criticized Dr. Brobe for importing toy machines for the country? Kwesi warned Dr. Kofiada that Dr. Brobe was one of untouchables within the party. Eventually, Dr. Ada was removed from his position by President Kufuor.
No, I still insist that what I said was right. Dr. Brobe wrote a lengthy article.
Yes,
in which he said that those machines were toy machines. I know what I'm talking about.
Yes. You all know that. Yes.
Okay, Mr. Pratt, so the last topic.
Again, another manifestation of the bankruptcy of Ghana. We're talking about 500,000 cedis. 500,000 cedis.
About $50,000, I believe.
Government cannot pay. Government of Ghana cannot pay 500,000 cedis. And as a result, a school has been shut down. Just a clear manifestation of our bankruptcy. And I can insist that this bailout by IMF and so on is not taking us anywhere. The last time I checked, the cedi is now exchanging for 14 cedis, 20 pesos to $1. It's going to get worse. And we are going to suffer a lot more. And that is why I really pity whoever is going to take over from this government. Yeah. I mean, the tax ahead is monumental. Okay? And I'm hearing all kinds of suggestions. There are all kinds of people who are coming and saying, when we come to power, arrest them and jail them. Look, it is all right to insist on probity and accountability, but it is not enough. If you arrest all NPP ministers and activists and jail them, you haven't solved any problem. You arrest them, you jail them, in 3 months' time, the people of Ghana will be asking for reduction in prices. They'll be looking at price of petroleum products, they'll be looking at those things. Those are the most important things. It's not the arrest them and jail them which is going to solve any problem in Ghana. In any case, those who are clamoring for arresting and jailing so-called NPP corrupt officials, they should listen to me very carefully this morning. Are these the courts that are going to jail these NPP chaps? The courts we have today. The judicial system, this judicial system, can it be used for that exercise? I don't know, I'm just asking. In any case, if these people have amassed the kinds of monies that we claim that they have amassed, they can frustrate any prosecution. Look, prosecutions can go on for years, litigation in the courts, for years. And are we going to waste all our resources and so on, engage in elongated prosecutions and legal battles and so on? Whoever is taking over from this government must focus attention on delivering on the needs and aspirations of our people. That's the key. Otherwise, in 3 to 6 months' time, people will be on the streets calling for heads to roll. I am not in any way opposed to the pursuit of probity and accountability and so on. But let's concentrate on doing the necessary things. Me I did here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pratt. Nana claims to have solved. What other thing has he done in Ghana? Corruption is skyrocketing, inflation is high, cost of living high, exchange rate high, fuel prices high, dollar higher. With Tani Daniel from Paga sent in this one. This one also says, hi KOD, I'm Joseph Bumuni Asani, a former classmate of Honorable Ines Afuseni. I'm watching you live from the UK with regards to Honorable Ines Afuseni. KOD, please, DANSO is not over. I'm seriously wondering. So, Kwasia Binti, Ghanaians have returned back to DANSO due to economic miscalculation and ineptitude that has led us to this thing called DANSO. And instead of them finding a solution to it, they are rather frauding us on top of it. All right, thank you. Martin Amevo from Lakeside Estate here in Accra. Thank you, Mr. Pratt. Thank you, Honorable Ines Afuseni. That brings us to an end to today's program. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.